G'day guys and gal. The Primarchs were hyper-advanced tools of war, legendary generals and warlords with infinite will and obscene power. Yet they were more than this. Almost all Primarchs fondly envisioned a galaxy free of war, dominated by mankind and embracing a golden age. Some even begun planning for what they would do once the Great Crusade was over, ranging from wholesome good endings to pretty depressing sadder endings, all of which we will explore today. Before we get started, here's a little treat for you. The Majorkill 2024 cosplay calendar is having a fire sale. All remaining stock, whether it be returns, spares, or just leftovers, is 50% off for the next 48 hours or until they sell out. Sure, as a calendar, it's pretty out of date halfway through the year, so 50% off makes sense, but boobs never go out of date. So if you wanted to get the calendar but couldn't be stuffed with the price or whatever, then now is your chance. This calendar will never be restocked or brought back into production, and I don't think you want to leave this world without seeing what Sheeman Luss's Wolfers look like. I also found about 30 or so Legendary Edition calendars left over, which have been given a 10% discount. Legendary featuring an extra cosplay as well as a photo deck, and they're signed. Link to claim this deal is below. The fire sale starts right now. Today we'll go over what each of the Primarchs wanted or were planning to do if the Great Crusade never ended, also mentioning what the Emperor would want to do with them as well. Let's get into it. Let's first kick off with the Lion, cause number one baby. The Lion was all about duty and loyalty. He enjoyed being the Lord of the First, and he enjoyed the power that came along with that. He did not have ambitions to become a farmer or go retire and live out his infinite days fishing and riding ponies. No, the Lion would stay by the Emperor's side, acting as one of his most trusted generals in case any threat was ever to emerge. The Emperor trusted the First Legion completely, thus why he gave them all their spicy no-no weapons and never doubted their loyalty during the heresy when others did. So he would have welcomed the Lion as his war leader. Fulgrim, at least before he became a turbo rapist, was big about self-improvement and exploring ways to get ever closer to perfection. He wasn't anti-war or destruction, but he also wasn't a warmonger, and he would happily exist in a post-Great Crusade peaceful galaxy. He would raise up the Emperor's children to become the greatest of the legions to make up for their decades spent as a weak, wounded legion, hosting many honor duels, tournaments, games, and so on for the now warless legions to compete against each other and keep things interesting. He would also explore a lot, looking at different cultures to see what works and what doesn't between them. You could argue that he'd end up just becoming a travel influencer. Perturabo, although the master of war machines, was incredibly inventive and explorative. He loathed the fact that his gifts were directed entirely towards making death machines, when in reality he loved inventing mind-warping near impossible things. Perturabo and Magnus were close because of their shared love of exploring and knowledge. With this in mind, it's clear that Perturabo would have loved to build and invent these stunning machines, making extremely ornate and beautiful for the betterment of mankind. A reliable perpetual motion machine would have been one of many things I believe Perty would create and bring to the Imperium, alongside amazing exploration ships and stunning artworks. Jaghatai and his legion loved freedom. They loved exploring and hunting. However, Jaghatai wasn't the biggest fan of the Imperium and the fact that he still had a leash upon his neck. With the Crusade over, Jaghatai would request that the White Scars be relieved of active duty and free to pursue their own adventures. The Emperor would grant this, allowing the White Scars to split off into dozens of warbands that would explore the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Although the galaxy would be mostly peaceful, there would still be orcs, Dark Eldar, and other threats for a very long time post-Great Crusade. So these would be the targets of the White Scars as they love to battle and hunt. Jaghatai would do this until the galaxy had been completely mapped out, all threats had been destroyed, or he himself vanished or was killed. The Space Wolves were a very warlike legion and would likely struggle in a peaceful galaxy. Who knows, maybe they would surprise us though. Russ would likely act as the other side to the Lion's coin, two legions that maintain their strength and warlike tendencies to watch over mankind and crush any threats that emerged. It was often said that the Wolves were the Emperor's executioners, whilst the Dark Angels were the Emperor's exterminators. So between the two of them, the bad guys are gonna have a bad time. Or maybe Lehman would just invent turbo beer and actually figure out how to get drunk with his brothers. Dorn and Perturabo were very similar when it came to a lot of things, including their desire to move away from building warlike shit. Dorn often spoke about his dream to build buildings that were beautiful and innovative. He was so keen for the day where he wouldn't have to raise a fortress, but instead works of art. Dorn was very upset about having to turn the Imperial Palace from a stunning piece of architecture into an ugly and highly functional fortress. He told himself that it's okay, when the war is over we will all put it back the way it was. Dorn would encourage his legion to go out into the galaxy and build wonders on various worlds, showing off mankind's talent and representing the shift change from being a people at war to a people at peace. Konrad's place in a post-Crusade galaxy wasn't super clear. Even before the heresy, he was despised by his brothers and actually had a warrant out for his arrest and capture due to him hurting Dorn and blowing up his own home planet. His insanity was also getting progressively worse, so I believe he would either end up killing himself, end up betraying the Imperium and acting as a threat, or returning to the Emperor and getting his insanity cured, which the Emperor said he could do, and I believe that. As a cured, non-insane Konrad, he could act as the architect of the Imperium's justice. After all, just because mankind would be at peace doesn't mean there wouldn't be a fuckload of crime happening. Konrad would relish the chance to impose justice and order upon the new galaxy, using his legion to break up corruption, destroy gangs, and quell uprisings, showing that although the Imperium was now in a golden age, it was still an oppressive, ruthless regime that you don't want to fuck with. Sanguinius' first order of business in a peaceful galaxy would be to figure out how to stop the Red Thirst in his legion. He was extremely bothered by it and sought to cure at all costs. With the Crusade over and him now having a bit more spare time, he would pursue the cure, likely working with Magnus, Fabius Bile, and even the Emperor himself if he summoned the courage to speak to his father about it. I do believe eventually he would manage to cure it, at which point he would encourage his sons to achieve their own destinies, pursuing their arts and passions, acting as exemplars to inspire others. Sanguinius would act as a figurehead, the Emperor's emissary and representative, maybe alongside Horus. He would be tasked with engaging in diplomatic relations with potentially non-hostile factions, such as newly discovered human cultures, the Eldar, or the eventual rise of the Tower Necrons. Now for Ferrus the Manus. Ferrus enjoyed a bit of war here and there, but not so much that it would consume him. He would grow wary of a peaceful galaxy, afraid it would make mankind weak. To this end, he would team up with his best brother Fulgrim to make these games and tournaments between the legions, the Space Marine Olympics, the most unnatty, roided up event the galaxy had ever seen. Ferrus also vowed to rid himself of his necrodermis metal arms in order to show his legion that the flesh was not weak, thus steering his sons away from a future in which they sacrificed their own humanity to the machine. With the help of the Mechanicum and the Emperor, I don't see why he wouldn't be able to rid himself of the Necron metal. Unfortunately for Angron, the butcher's nails he had implanted were a death sentence, with even the Emperor being unable to remove them or halt their damage. As such, Angron would die towards the end of the Great Crusade. There's just no other way around it. However, that doesn't have to be the end though. The Emperor and Malcador have stated that with enough time and effort, they could bring back dead Primarchs. I believe this is due to the Warp God theory, in which each Primarch is a Warp God infused with the impressive biomancy of the Emperor's creation. So they would just need to go back into the Warp to retrieve Angron's Warp God essence that was released when he died, and put it into a new body they would create for him. This new Angron would be free of the nails and free of the trauma, fulfilling his role as a paladin and empath, healing his legion of their warlust and acting as a powerful, honourable, and just wing of the Imperium's military. The Lion and Russ would be used to destroy an enemy, Angron would be sent to give them a chance to surrender. Despite most people thinking Guilliman would become a big politician or statesman within the Imperium, this isn't actually what he wanted to do. Guilliman explicitly stated that he was keen for a peaceful, simple life, farming on one of Ultramar's more quiet worlds. It's unclear if this was just because he was stressed as hell and wanted a break during the heresy, or if he always wanted to do this no matter what. Guilliman was training his Ultramarines to be statesmen and leaders for a post-Great Crusade galaxy, but also perhaps in a galaxy where he no longer took an active part of. Mortarion was always going to be a challenge for a post-war galaxy. He still hated psykers, yet the Emperor was ushering mankind to become a psychic race. Morty also resented his father a lot for what happened back on Barbaros. I wouldn't be surprised if Morty took his legion to the Ghoul Stars and founded his own empire there, free of psykers, or perhaps he would need to be disarmed and purged if the Emperor saw that he could not integrate into the new psychic Imperium. There's a chance that he would eventually come round and chill out, but if the Death Guard are known for one thing, it's been stubborn as fuck. Magnus wasn't exactly a big fan of war. He loved exploring and collecting knowledge. The Emperor actually intended Magnus to sit on the Dark Throne, a weaker version of the Golden Throne, which would give mankind access to the Webway and potentially even the Deep Warp. Magnus would then be tasked with sitting on the Golden Throne. Now you might be like, why the fuck would Magnus agree to be a big ass red battery? Well, the Golden Throne actually massively boosted your psychic power, especially if the Webway didn't have a hole in it, so Magnus would be able to explore the depths of the warp as a flaming untouchable comet. If he wanted to explore the galaxy in person, he could easily possess one of the Thousand Suns or just project a shard of himself wherever. Being on the Golden Throne would actually be a great time for Magnus. Horus would be retired as War Master with the wars being over, likely teaming up with Sanguinius to act as diplomats of the Imperium. However, there is a small chance that Horus's ego ego flares up and he rejects the removal of his title of War Master and refuses to relinquish his power, thus creating the Horus Heresy anyways. But I think it would be a much less effective rebellion and have much less Primarchs backing him up. Maybe Curze and Mortarion, and Angron if he wasn't dead yet, but not much after that. In this whole version of events I'm talking about, Chaos doesn't exist, which is why the Crusade is allowed to be completed. So this version would be really interesting for Lorgar. He would still get humiliated on Monarchia and would seek a new god to worship, but without Chaos being around, he would struggle to find one. This would either drive him mad, push him to worship some weird-ass niche god, or eventually straighten him out and make him a loyal atheist, using his charisma and passion to spread the Imperial truth and shore up the loyalty within the Imperium. Lorgar could become the voice of the Emperor, as it was said that out of all the Primarchs, Lorgar resembled the Emperor the most. Vulcan would enjoy a galaxy at peace, spending his time with his sons and creating technological marvels for the betterment of mankind. He would go down a similar path to Perturabo, with his artifacts of Vulcan being shared around and used to push the technology of the Imperium further and further. I also believe Vulcan would spend a lot of time as a humble blacksmith, away from all the glory and noise of being a Primarch. Corvus stated that he was actually preparing to step down as the leader of the Raven Guard before the Horus Heresy, as he believed that no man, bar the Emperor, should wield so much power forever. He wanted his sons to rule themselves and pick their own path forward in a more peaceful galaxy. It's not clear what he would do when he faded into the shadows. Perhaps he would explore the galaxy or assassinate potential threats to the Imperium. Or maybe he would get more and more in touch with his warp side of things and become a big scary Birdman. Who knows? And finally, what would the Alpha Legion do? Our Pharos and Angron would never retire. They were like the ADHD kids that needed constant stimulation. The Emperor would also have need of a Spec Ops Incognito secret fighting force to handle the more insidious threats to the new Imperium, something the Alpha Legion would enjoy doing. I also do believe that out of boredom, our Pharos would manufacture extremely convoluted fake threats to the Imperium as a way to entertain himself while simply stating that he did it to test the Imperium's defenses and make sure it could handle threats effectively. This would in turn massively piss off all of his Primarch brothers who were either trying to live in peace or do their jobs. As a side note, the Emperor actually built a massive stunning garden paradise space in a hidden spot in Terra, I think within the heart of Mount Everest, that came with 20 custom Primarch scaled villas. So as a wholesome ending to this video, it seemed as if the Emperor wished to have a place where the Primarchs could live and relax together, as a family. Checkmate Emperor haters, man has a heart. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up a Majorkill cosplay calendar. The fire sale for 50% off is only live for the next 48 hours or until we sell out, which is what I'm anticipating. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more peaceful content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.